In the United Nations Climate Summit held in Paris, France, the president of China, President Xi Jinping, said climate change is a challenge for all humanity. The sustainable development of the Chinese nation and the future of the planet depend on tackling it successfully. He further stated that China attaches greater importance to the response of climate change. As the largest developing country in the world, China has adopted a number of policies, measures, and action to tackle climate change and take part in global climate governance, despite the difficulties it creates for its own economy and social development. And these efforts have achieved positive results, he said.
I believe that with all parties making joint efforts with sincerity and confidence, the Paris Conference will yield satisfying results. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the Paris Agreement should focus on strengthening post-2020 global actions on climate change and boost global efforts to pursue sustainable development. The Paris Agreement should help meet the goals of the UNFCCC and chart the course for green development. The agreement should follow the principles and rules set out in the UNFCCC and contribute to its full and effective implementation. The agreement should put effective control on the increase of atmospheric concentration of greenhouse gases and encourage countries to pursue green, circular, and low-carbon development. The Paris Agreement should help galvanize global efforts and encourage broad participation. The agreement should provide institutional arrangements that propel countries to make concerted efforts. Besides governments, it should also mobilize businesses, non-governmental organizations, and all players in society to participate in international cooperation on climate change, thus raising public awareness of climate change.
Since the 18th National Congress of the Communist Party of China, the CPC, convened in 2012, guided by President Xi Jinping, taught on eco-civilization and committed to the new development philosophy, China has made the response to climate change a higher priority in state governance. It has steadily reduced the intensity of its carbon emissions, reinforced the effort to achieve its nationally determined contributions, the NDCs, and maximized its drive to mitigate climate change. It has adopted green and low carbon approach in its economy and social development and work to build a modernized country in which humanity and nature coexist in harmony. In the general debate of the 75th session of the United Nations General Assembly on September 12, 2020, President Xi Jinping announced that China will scale up its NDCs by adopting more vigorous policies and measures, strive to pack carbon oxide emissions before 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality before 2060. China is taking pragmatic action towards these goals.
We should pursue open and inclusive development, remain committed to building an open world economy, and uphold the multilateral trading regime with the World Trade Organization as the cornerstone. We should say no to unilateralism and protectionism and work to ensure the stable and smooth functioning of global industrial and supply chains. Third, COVID-19 reminds us that humankind should launch a green revolution and move faster to create a green way of development and life, preserve the environment, and make Mother Earth a better place for all. Humankind can no longer afford to ignore the repeated warnings of nature and go down the beaten path of extracting resources without investing in conservation, pursuing development at the expense of protection, and exploiting resources without restoration. The Paris Agreement on Climate Change charts the course for the world to transition to green and low-carbon development. It outlines the minimum steps to be taken to protect the Earth, our shared homeland, and all countries must take decisive steps to honor this agreement. China will scale up its intended nationally determined contributions by adopting more vigorous policies and measures. We aim to have CO2 emissions peak before 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality before 2060.
A climate expert, Jin Tao, said China, as a responsible country, is committed to building a global climate governance system that is fair, rational, cooperative and beneficial to all, and make its due contribution to tackling climate change using its greatest strength and most effective solutions. He also said that, comforted by the challenges of climate change, China is willing to work together with the international community to ensure the Paris Agreement delivered steady and lasting results and make a greater contribution to the global response.
Announcement that to achieve the carbon emissions to the peak levels by 2030 and also achieve the carbon neutralities by 2060. And these objectives, we noticed, has been reconfirmed by the most recent, the 14th five-year plan. And we hope all of these objectives can be achieved through careful and more appropriate planning and executions. So now the focus should be shifted to how to implement these plans and also make sure the appropriate policy measures will be put in place.
China's response to climate change are an important part of its effort to achieve eco-environmental progress and high-quality development based on the requirement of its internal sustainable development and its due responsibility for building a global community of shared future. China has formulated new principles on tackling climate change and is contributing its solutions to global climate governance. For Star TV News in Freetown, George Elliott Sam reporting.